right? Anybody, any clarifications required for what we have done in past 2 days? Basic TDL components, special symbols, dimensions. Yes, no. Anybody? Hello? Hello? Now can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Right. So we had done the basics of TDL components, hierarchy, basic hierarchy. Anybody, any questions, any clarifications required? Anybody? No clarifications? Okay, then what is the difference between space left and indent? This was what you had to look for. Anybody, please raise your hand when you need to answer, please. Anybody? A difference between space left and indent? I have a response from Muthu, indent only for line and field. Right, Muthu, but the question is, what is the difference between the indent and the space left? I have a response from Alekh.
Index will consider as a tab spaces, and space left, what space we are mentioning, that much space it will take.
Okay, there is a response from two people. The same response. Space left is the space bar. Space and indent is using the tab space. Okay, so Joseph, there are two people responding this. Okay, Alay Khan has responded. Space left takes into account the field width and indent does not, and that's actually the right answer. Well, your answer is correct, but space left, the main difference in tally for the space left and the indent is space left does not take the field width into account. Sorry, the space left takes the field width into account and the indent does not take the field width into account.
Doubt.
Yes, tell me.
Yeah, like if I am giving my field width as a 30 mm,
right,
and space left if I give 10 mm, whether it will deduct that 30 mm if I space left?
And the space left is the field width is 30 mm, and
space
space left is 10 mm, right? So your question is, if my field width is 30 mm and my space left is 10 mm, what would be my written area, right? So anybody would like to answer this question? If his field width is 30 mm and space left is 10 mm, what will be the total width of this field? It's actually 30 mm. When it is indent, it is 30 mm plus the indent. So if I write my field width as 30 mm and my indent as 10 mm, it becomes 40 mm for that particular area. right? If it is indent, then it is 40, else it is 30. Right? Okay. And there was another question, another thing there was you had to check, right? Dimensions. I think there was some question on dimensions also I had asked. Okay, I'll just repeat. If the field width is 30 mm, if the field width is 30 mm and the space left is 10 mm, the total space of the width will be 30 mm because space left will include the border of the will be within the field. Whereas when you mention the indent, the field width is 30 mm plus the indent space 10 mm, so the total space is 40 mm. There was another question I had asked, the difference between inactive and invisible. I am glad to see many of you are referring to various places to give an answer. Rachna, I do not see any response from your side. I would like to know the difference between indent and inactive. Muthu has given me the response. Very good, Muthu. You are absolutely right. Like Khan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You are absolutely right. Anybody else would like to try this? Rachna, Sanjeev, Puneet, Shahid. Okay. The difference between an inactive and invisible is inactive keeps the space reserved for something that is not seen on your screen, but invisible does not keep that space at all. So if I have two fields in one line and one is inactive, if the field is inactive, the line length will continue to be 40 and the second field will appear from its width. Whereas when I have one field invisible and the other field visible, the invisible field space will be taken away by the second field. So absolutely right. Now, what else? So anybody, any clarifications? I'll just repeat this basic hierarchy once again. You might be wondering why I am repeating this over and over again, because gradually, as I said, we are phasing out from the UI and moving it towards the more on the writing on the interactions and connecting ourselves to the internal objects. And then we will completely lose the touch of the UI hierarchy. So the basic hierarchy of the definition: the report has a form has a part has a line has a field is where we display our data. I hope everybody is clear and no doubts, no clarifications on this. Everybody? Yes? No? Right.
This is Jackson.
I think somebody is unmuted. Yes, Jackson, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, I actually, ma'am, I tried yesterday something you gave us to do in the first way. Only one thing that I want to discuss is if I want to compile it, if I want to compile the program, there is no way we can do it in the education module. We just can.
Jackson, Jackson, as I had informed on the first day itself, you require a license to the compilation, to do a compilation of file and to create a TCP, you need to have a valid Tally developer license. You cannot do it without that. Right? Okay. So moving further.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. One more doubt.
Yes, there's another question.
Yeah, when we can use switch and when we can use as an option. Any example?
Okay, so there is a question asked, when do I use switch and when do I use an option? See, more or less, as I said, the working is the same. However, if you have 25 conditions to be fulfilled, in option based on and not and or combination, you will have to create those conditions. Whereas in switch, depending upon the grouping criteria, it varies. Don't worry, while we are going to start writing the course, you will see how we can make better use of providing conditions to give outputs. So today there is something that we are starting, so that should help you, right? So we can continue with the current thing. Muthu will take your question offline because this is something little away from what we are going to do, what we have already done. Okay. So today's topic is variables, buttons, and keys. So we have variables, we have buttons, and we have keys. So whatever we have done up till now was very standard, and there was nothing else. I mean, everything was just hard-coded, and everything was getting display. Now gradually we are going to make this little interactive, though hard-coded, but little interactive, that based on some clicks we will be able to do something. So we start with something very basic, a variable. Now, what's a variable? A variable is an entity which can take different values, and it is independent of your database. It does not matter what you have in your database. The variable is a completely independent of that database. Basic requirement of this variable is to help you to change the look, the feel of a report. For giving example, you are running an HR firm. You are running a recruitment agency, and as per your recruitment, you are trying to showcase a report. This report is providing you the list of all the companies which require legal advice. In this, you only want to view the name of the company, designation, the number of years of experience required. In general, the report that we generally see in Tally, we get all the details. Number of years, and the salary they give, and this and that. However, I just want to view selected columns. So in Tally, these selected columns are controlled by variables. Let me open Tally and give you one very small example. This is Tally. Okay. Now, balance sheet. My data has been populated into this balance sheet. However, right now the data that I'm viewing is into this vertical format. Correct? I want to view this in horizontal format. F12. Can everybody see my balance sheet? Right? So here I press F12, show vertical balance sheet, no. And now I access the screen. Now I have a horizontal balance sheet. How does it matter to my data? Does it impact my data whether I see it horizontally or vertically? Does my profit increases when I see it vertically and I see it horizontally, it becomes my loss? Does it impact my database? No, it does not. So to control these kind of behaviors is why we have. Now, obviously, it does not make sense for me to store these values in my database or along with my data. It does not impact my data at all. How does it matter? So these kinds of data, where it does not impact my database but definitely impacts the view of my data, are stored in variables. So variable can store values independent of your database, which we call as object or collection, and are specifically used to help you to control the behavior of a report that you see on your screen. We can create a new variable, and we can create a new report or a new menu. So open square bracket, definition type variable, colon, the name of my variable. Everybody clear with this? Everybody clear with this? Yes, anybody has a question? I think somebody raised the hand, right? No. So everybody clear with this? Variable?
Yeah, like if I want to store my values, like right now when we are changing in the like yes or no, it is not saving. So every time it is asking for me. If I want to store that value, how we can do that?
Okay, so there is a question that right now when I do yes or no, that yes does not get stored, it gets changed back to no. This is a very good question. Just have little patience. That's what the next thing we are hopping on. So don't worry, that's there. But is this part clear?
Yes.
Right. So there are 4 basic attributes of variables. These are not the only attributes. These are the 4 basically frequently used attributes at variable. One is the type. What type of data can this variable hold? Whether it's a string, number, date, or logical. What will be the default value of this variable when it is introduced to Tally? There is something called as persistent, there is something called as volatile, right? So we start with something called data type, called type. And I did tell you, right, that by using hash, we can display the variable value. Okay, so we'll show that. We'll write a small tried out code on that. So I will say just copy pasting this just to make it a little faster. I write variables and so my shortcut becomes to display variable type. Okay, I am just copying my report name because when I add a new file, I will just copy paste the name of my report so I don't make a spelling mistake. So my fourth file, open square bracket, report, /*, this file has been created to show the usage of variable. */ right? Report title is important generally for every report, but what if I don't provide a title to this report? Will it fail? Will it give me an error? I got some answers. Ali says no, Puneet says no, Muthu says it's in a project, no error. Okay, there's no error, right. There is no error, absolutely correct. If I don't provide a title, there wouldn't be an error. But then, what would be my report title? Will it be blank or would there be a default value? Okay, there are few people responded, Rachna and Jackson. They said that will be a default value. Now, what will be the default value? What would be the default value? Anybody would like to try? The answer is yes. The report title wouldn't be blank. There will be a default value. Now, what is that default value? The default value when table name is not provided, the report name is not provided, it will be the report name. So if I don't give title, it will give this as my report title name. Okay? So if this is not provided, will be my report name. There is somebody unmuted. Who is? Would you like to ask a question while you are unmuted? I am not able to search who is unmuted. Somebody? Was there anybody who wanted to ask a question? Okay, fine. So the report name is variable test. I have provided a title called variables. However, if I don't provide the title, the name of my report will be considered to be the title of my report. Correct? My report contains form, form contains part. Part contains control space bar to get the list of attributes under part. Paste, open square, control space bar gives me the list of destination types, colon, control space bar, field, and set as variable result. Now before we go ahead checking or doing anything, we always should start with the basic thing and check what is the output. So Control F5 executes Tally from my Tally developer, connecting this project to the Tally. Tally executed. Select company name, username and password. My variables 2 is the name of my, and I see the title. But have you noticed that in many screens of Tally, there are those prompts available? The colons are available. Can't you provide that? Maybe we should provide that, right? So it looks more neater. So we'll provide a prompt. Now we will provide one more field which gives me the output of this variable. So I give field variable name set as. Right now my set as is blank. I will give an value to it as the text in my variable. So I'll define a variable and my variable name I give variable test and its type as. We start with something very crude and crucial, string, something very, very basic. And obviously, currently the variable has no value, so I provide a default value to this variable, which says TD set 10. Fine. And I want this variable value to be shown here. To show a field value, I could do hash, copy, paste the field name, so I get the same thing. Similarly, if I want this variable value, it has to be double hash the variable name. Is this clear to everybody? Yes, Ali. Anybody else, any doubt on this? What does this do? So right now, the only aim is to show this value that is holded in a variable to this, right? We are only going to show that. So let's check the output once again. Oh, well, there's no output. I did right? I have a variable test2, I have provided this, but my field did not show the value. Oh, why? Save circuit 5. It is not showing me the value. Why? There has to be some reason behind it, right? Is the first thing, the valid thing that you need to do is, you need to check whether the name you have given is correct or not. So does it trigger? Yes, it does trigger. I have given type, I have given default. Still, my field value does not come. Moreover, I am not even able to know whether the field exists or not. So let me just give the width to the field to understand at least whether the field is getting linked or not. So I give 40% of screen, and here I give width as 25% of screen. Okay. And to get ensure that we are 100% getting the screen, I also give it a background color to be red. See, these are only ways how you can troubleshoot whether what you are doing is correct or not. So I'm giving the width, I'm giving the background, I'm not giving the output, but I'm giving the width and the background. So at least I know whether it is working or not. So let me just refresh. S12 TDL F4. Oh yes, the field has got added, but the text is still not getting displayed. So what could be the reason? We'll see that. So at least I know to this extent that the code is correct. Now, why there is no output? We'll see that. Then we have an attribute called default. Then we have an attribute called persistent. Now, this is where I think brand mark. Yes, you had asked this question that the yes does not remain yes, it becomes no again. Right? That was the question you had asked me. This is the reason. There is something called as persistent. Now, what's the meaning of persistent? What's the meaning of persistent? Continuous, absolutely right. Persistent means existence, whether it should be lasting or not. Absolutely correct. Generally, when you just write variable colon variable name and you provide the data type, it only means that the variable exists. However, whether this variable value should be retained or should be not be retained is what you need to mention. So, the persistent yes indicates that the value of this variable should be holding within the application even after you quit the application. So, Brian, your question was, how does it hold? This is the reason it holds, that those variable definitions have an attribute written called persist. However, every persistent variable has to be a system variable. We have written a system formula and we had something called as local formula. Local formula could be used within the definition type. Similarly, if any variable value has to be persisting or has to be existing even after you restart your application, it has to be a part of my system. Hence, every persistent variable has to be a part of my system variable. So the moment I write persistent colon yes, this becomes mandate. Now what is this? This says that variable GRB expense STR is of type string should persist under the system variable, the variable name and its default value. Now, if you have mentioned the default value here, you may not mention a default value here. However, even if you don't mention a default value here, it initializes itself with a null value. And then gradually, based on what you have, what is your last value that you have selected gets stored there. So default value is not mandate. You can leave it as empty code without a space and it can persist. Then there is something called as volatile. Basically, a variable can hold only one value at a time. A variable can hold only one value at a time. Now, there are certain behaviors that we need. For example, when I go to my trial balance, display trial balance, I go to current liabilities, I press enter, sundry creditors, sundry creditors non-trading, Assured Finance's monthly summary, go to the month of October, it is blank, okay. I don't have any entries for him. Okay. Okay. And I press enter here, I see the voucher, I press enter here, I see its voucher, right? Now when I start doing an escape, it returns back in the same sequence I had entered. That's a LIFO method, last in first out method that it follows. This behavior of a variable is called stacking. So as I said, at any given point of time, a variable holds only one value. So to stack this value into a LIFO method, a variable attribute called volatile should be enabled. Now the question is, do I have to mention volatile yes every time for every variable in case I want this behavior? Answer is no. Even if you do not mention volatile yes, the hidden feature of this variable you create will be volatile yes. So by default, if you do not mention persistent, the default value of every variable inherited is no, and for volatile inherited is yes. Am I made myself very clear? Have I made myself clear? Anybody, any queries? Rachna, can we use both of them together? Rachna, does it, as I said, variables can hold one value at a time. So stacking of value and hold and making it persistent. So Rachna has a question, can I say persistent colon yes and volatile colon yes? Does not make sense actually, Rachna, because at a time a variable can hold only one value, and the moment you do a volatile and when you stack out, it disturbs the last variable value it had. So even if I enter the trial balance again, probably the variable value will be empty. And when I say volatile, it is stacking the value and destructing it. So does not make sense to have volatile and persistent together. Right? Now, coming back to this important thing, the question that we still have facing with the problem, my variable value is not displayed. The reason is scope. Mere declaration of variable does not make sense. When I define the variable, it merely exists in Tally. When I say variable colon variable name is italic, it is merely defined. It is a variable. Something like, I have written variable test2 and it exists. If I write something like this and make it test3, this field definition exists. It's merely existing, but I haven't used it. Existence is there, but I haven't used it. Usage is not there. I have not declared it that it is going to be used at this line. Right? So a mere existence does not mean that it can be used, or it simply says it's available. So this is what we need to understand. The scope of the variable. Depending upon the scope of the variable is how we can use it. So right now I have simply said that I have a variable called variable test. Now I will declare this at my report level that somewhere in my TDL code there is a variable which exists and I want you to use the variable. I'll just change that name so that we know we are talking about a variable. I'll just make it variable test var. Otherwise it will be a little confusing. Right? So I simply define, definition is there. Only at my report level I am declaring that somewhere in material code there is a variable that exists that you might have to use somewhere, and I am using it. Now let's refresh the TDL. Let's run TDL at 4. Am I getting the output? Yes. So what was the difficulty? A mere existence of a variable definition does not mean that it is or it can be used at any given point of time until and unless it is called. Until and unless it is called, you cannot use it. This is usage, this is definition, and this is declaration. So until it is not declared at the report level, the usage cannot happen. So there is a scope that we have, a local scope, and a global scope. So variable that can be used only in the report where it is associated is what we just did. So only if I declare at my report level that I have a variable, then within this report definition in the entire hierarchy, I can use this variable at any given point of time. There is an
Can we use multiple times same variable in the same report?
There is a question that has been raised. The question is, can I use the same variable in that report multiple times? Yes, you can. Tally does not hold you back to use the same variable multiple times. That's absolutely okay. But then, as I said, that variable will hold one value at a time. So if the same variable is used in the same report and you're trying to change the values, it will hold the last value. Okay? Set is a variable that helps me to change my variable value. Now, I'll just show you how it happens. Variable definition, I have given my default value as tally. At report definition, I have only declared it and have used it. Now, at this report level, I say set. I give my variable name. The reason I am not mentioning that it's a variable is because set only takes a variable name. And I change this to Now you understand the importance of commenting. This is a set attribute at report level which takes variable name. Here also I can write set, but here it allows me to push a text or some value for output display. But here set indicates that I want to change the variable value. So let's refresh. Right now it is showing tally, picking up from variable, F12 TDL F4, Control A to reaccess, refresh. Right? But this means that if I create another report, even in that report, I will have to declare this, that it's a variable that I want to use. Currently, this is called a local scope of a variable. So, if a variable is attached to that report, then the scope of this variable will be only that report and its components. As I said, initial values are not mandatory. You may have initial values, you may not have initial values, but these are called local variables, and these need to be explicitly called in whichever report you want to use. Clear? Everybody clear what's the local variable? Muthu, I'll come to your question a little later. Everybody clear? Ashok, are you clear?
Set function is nothing like local, like normally we use as a local, right? It's the same, similar kind of function. Under report, if I am writing, it will take this for the complete variable or only that particular assigned variable?
First of all, it is not a function, it's an attribute. Secondary, the behavior of attributes, as I said, the attribute names may be same in the definition, but their behaviors will be different. So the set attribute at report level accepts variable name as a parameter. So whatever variable name you have provided is what will be considered for modification. Right? I think I have answered your question, Brand. Right? So that's a local variable. Initial values are not necessary. I need to define or declare it as a report definition, and I can use that variable across all the components of that particular report. But have you noticed that there are certain variables which are used in all the reports, like F2, your current date. What you change here is accepted or it is changed across all the screens and reports of Tally. Isn't it? Right? So that's what happens, right? So there are certain variables which are used across all your reports, and if you change at one place, it changes your entire Tally. It may just change an entire Tally. So how do we do that? So there is where the local variable comes into picture. So there is something called as global variable. So like we have a system formula, we have something called a system variable to make a variable global. So even if I do not declare it at reports level, the variable still can be used. So currently what I have done is at report level I have mentioned this variable name, right? I'll do one thing, I will add another field. I will give another variable, TSTL variable test tag. I give it as hash. So this is what I want to show. I will define a new variable colon variable name. The data type will be of type string. I do not provide a default value, but I declare it as a system variable. They provide an initial value. In case you do not want to provide an initial value, you need to provide empty quotes. That means I do not want to provide any initial value. It's a null character. And I will give an initial value here. Now, this TSPL variable test2, I am not mentioning in my report at all or anywhere in its components. But I have given it to be a system variable. So now just see this change. Ratna. Did I really declare it in my report definition? No, I did not. But here it is showing. So the difference between a local variable and a system variable is that I do not have to declare it at every report level that use this variable, but a system variable, I can do that. Right? So when the moment I declare it in a system variable, it can be used across all the variables. However, making it system variable does not make this variable value stored, or probably the value that we are changing will not be stored even after we quit Tally. But there was something that I spoke about, right? Persistence, that the value will persist, the change will persist even as I change it, right? So every persistent variable is a system variable, but every system variable is not a persistent variable. So if I want to use a variable across all the reports, you can use this, more than enough. But if you want the application to hold this value even after you save, even after you quit Tally, then it is Am I clear? Am I clear?
Clear.
So I just repeat this. Every persistent variable has to be a system variable, but every system variable is not a persistent variable. Done? So, the moment it's a system variable, this variable can traverse from an interface to interface till the application is not quit. Interface to interface, this means there are 4 kinds of interfaces we spoke about: report, menu, button, and table. And as you have seen, every report in default Tally has buttons. Now buttons are, again, all this is variables. So whatever I change here, this is my button. Whatever I change here should impact my interface. This is a button. With a click of a button, if my variable value is changing, should impact my report. As for the Tally internally, button and report are 2 different entities. So variable is the bridging element to help us to interact between the button and our report. Hence, every button you use, every variable you use in your button will be a system variable, but they will not be a persistent variable. Is this clear? So there are variables which are called local. There are variables that we have global, and based on that we can change it. with everybody? Right. So we come to this field acting as a variable when we are going to write a drill down report similar to our trial balance. So for time being, we can just take a note of it. Field acting as a variable. What is important for a field to exist? Its data type. So even field has a data type. So the moment a field has a data type and you declare a variable in that field, the data type is picked from there. So we will be seeing this when we are writing our drill down reports. So just keep this concept in mind. There is something called as field acting as variable. So there are ways that you can modify variable values on the fly. One is at the report level we can write set. Field level there is an attribute called modify to help you to change the variable value, and this is what we are going to start with. Set action of button definition, which is going to help me to make my report a bit more interactive. So we start with something called as buttons, right? So I am going to make my interface a little more interactive. So I will have a definition type called button. A button always has a title. There is an attribute called action, and this action, one of the actions is set, which is similar to the attribute that we have at the report level. So this is how we are going to do. So before we get into creation of buttons and everything, there are a few details you need to understand. Everything in Tally is action. You even scroll down, it's an action, scroll up is an action. So how are these actions triggered? These actions are triggered either through menu, that's a display that we saw, something like button that we saw, we press F2 and it's a button, or shortcut keys, enter, it's a key. So when menus when selected executes the action, button is visible on the button bars that you have seen. These are the button bars, this top panel and the bottom panel that we have. All this is button bar. Key activates when the action, when the specified keys are hit, and these are associated with buttons. You see, there is F4 is the shortcut key associated to a button, or a single underline is Alt plus F2 is a shortcut key for period, F2 is a shortcut key for date, right? So every button is linked to a specified combination of keys, and a key can be associated to a button. So three basic attributes of button: the key, the shortcut key we require, the title to the button, what should be the button name that gets displayed there, and an action to perform. When I click on that button, what should happen? Okay. So this is how it will look like. Again, as I said, mere existence of button definition does not link it to a report. However, a button is added to the form and not to the report. So let us just add a button to this existing report that we have created. Right? We'll do one. We'll create one. And we will create another variable for that. We will not use the existing variable. We'll create a logical variable for this that will be helping us doing our job. And it is also going to show you how do we use an option or a switch. So I have created a new variable. The variable name is TDL variable test2. Right? Now, because I'm going to use this variable in my hello, am I audible?
Hello.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Right. So now because I'm going to use this variable in a button, and based on that, I would like to show its output into my report. It should impact my report. I will have to declare this variable in my system variable, and I will give an initial value to be no. Okay, so I've given an initial value and I have given the definition. So now this variable can be used across interfaces without even defining it at any given point of time, right? So now I want to use this variable for my button. So I'll do one thing. On click of this button, I will change the background color of this particular field. The requirement statement is I will not even go to that complicated part. I will go to a simple thing. Click of that button, I will make this field invisible. Is the requirement clear? Based on click of a button, I will make my variable test2 visible or invisible. Right? So first thing that I will do is I will create a button. I will give the button name as TDL. In the button, title I will provide invisible. Then I need a shortcut key combination to do my work. Every key in Tally you see has a shortcut key. Every button has a shortcut key. So I will provide a shortcut key to this. So key medium F1. So when I press F1, this field should become invisible. And I say action set which variable name? This variable name, if I'm not wrong, correct. To yes. So when I click on this button, the variable value should become yes. And this button has to be declared at my part level, that we need to use this button. Is this clear? Is this clear what I have done? I created a new variable. I declared it under system variable so that I can use this variable to talk between my interfaces.
Always we have to define the buttons under part only?
It is not under part at all. Who is
No,
this?
you define the, yeah, under the part you mentioned that button, right now? You,
No, it's not under part. I have declared it in the form.
form, okay. So always it should be under the form, buttons. Declared form.
It's a non-procedural language. TDL is a non-procedural language. So it does not matter.
No, I mean, no. I mean to say, like, always the buttons we have to declare under the form only. Under the part we cannot declare, right?
Button attribute is under definition type form. Button is an attribute of definition type form. Part, how can we have a button? Because anywhere in Tally, display demo, a button is for this entire report, and it's not for this particular, that there is a different button for this and there's a different button for this area. No, it's not based on the area. For this entire chunk, this is the button, whatever it is. Understood? So it cannot be as a part. It is a part. It has to be declared in the form. So a button is declared in the form so that you can use it for any part, line or field below that hierarchy. Is this clear? Am I clear? Right?
Clear.
Right. So, okay. Now, what will I do is, okay. So let us just execute and see what is happening in my Tally. Now, since it's a system variable, I will have to quit Tally and restart. Any system variable to get into existence, you have to quit Tally and restart. If it's a local variable, you can refresh Tally. But when it's a system variable, you have to restart Tally. Right? So on the top corner, I can see invisible and I click on this. But nothing is happening. So does it mean that my yes, no is not working? I haven't given what it should do when it becomes yes. Have I given? No, I haven't. So when I click on this, I say invisible. Now what, by default, what invisible it should do? It should bring me this variable value. So if this variable value is yes, it will bring here yes and it will work. Let us just restart and check once again. Now see what happens. Select company invisible. But when I click again, it is not getting visible because I've hard put it here. I said always the moment I click on this, it should turn yes, but I have to toggle it, right? So what do? Copy whatever the variable value is, reverse it. If the variable value is yes, not of yes. So what is not of yes? What is not of yes? Absolutely right. Not of yes is no. So now let us refresh and see what is happening. So now it is yes. So when I click on it, it is no. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Again, based on this yes, no also, I can change this invisible title. How? If hash the variable value is equal to yes, then invisible, else visible. Now let's see how does it work. Shouldn't it be the reverse way? So is equal to yes, then visible, else invisible. Now, 2. Right now it is visible, so when I click on it, it becomes invisible, and the title changes to visible. And that is how simple it is to write this. Simple, isn't it?
If I want to store this value, like if always should be invisible, like whichever I stored, so how we can store that value?
Simple.
Persist as a yes?
Persistent, colon, yes. So now when I quit tally, now since I have written a value that has to get stored into my system, before I do it, I have to first quit. I'll just restart. Obviously for customer this will not happen. This process is only for the developer. So don't worry. Now see how the persistent works. Fine. So I go to variables. Right now it is visible. So I make it invisible. Quit. Start again. Correct, Brand? Have I answered your question?
Yes. Clear.
Right. Now there is one more angle to this. For an example, if I change my period here, this period changes across my tally. Correct? But if I change my period here, it only changes for this report. When I quit, it is again the original period in my history of tally. So when I enter again, it again restarts it. Right? Am I right? Everybody, have you noticed this change?
Yes.
Okay. So we do not have a separate set of variables here. What we do is the same variable, which we talk about persistent and being a system variable, although it is changed through variable and through button, we mention this variable name as the report scope